4, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, wait. Hang on. Hang on there. I loaded a save that had cheats active, so I need to just quit the game and go back. I loaded a save to test some things, and the save had used cheats before, so I just had to restart the game. Okay. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The Port of Adia.
All right, so I guess I'll explain right now. The game is split into 6 missions, and we have to, normally you would have to beat all of them to finish the game, but in the remaster, there's a new feature that basically allows you to break everything and only beat the first level. So we're going to beat the first one, and then the other ones we're going to kind of ignore all the mission objectives. All right, so the first level is called Port of Adia. This is the only level where we're going to do all the mission objectives. The goal is to activate 3 distress beacons. So the first one is right there, sort of like the
Distress beacon activated.
sort of like the intro objective. And the other objective is to rescue 4 children. And once that's done, we're going to be able to finish the level and reach the main hub. Also, I have with me on a Discord voice call one of the developers of the remaster of this game.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello. So, yeah, I figured we could probably be talking about some of the challenges you had and some of the nice features you added in the remaster that made this this version of the game much different from the original PC port.
Yeah, it actually wasn't a direct port. We had the original source code of the game as a reference, but the remaster itself is a completely different engine, and a lot of the gameplay logic and all that was used as a reference, but basically the renderer, the multiplayer system, all that was redone from scratch. And sorry, and also I was going to say one of the challenges was actually trying to make the game look good while removing all of the limitations that was present on the N64, like the draw distance. And of course, when the draw distance was extended, there was a lot of I guess you would say there's a lot of floating geometry and other stuff that you really weren't supposed to see. So it eventually came to it to where we actually had to update some of the levels to mask out some of that floating geometry.
Right. Yeah, one thing I noticed as well in the remaster is that some parts of the levels are also changed a little bit to make them a little less like maze-like and more linear, because the original game was sometimes extremely confusing, and like especially in the Lair of the Blind Ones, a later level that's like completely absurd in the original game.
Yeah, that level was it was pretty bad, and not only the Lair of the Blind Ones, but there was another. I think there was a few sections in River of Souls that was slightly altered to be less convoluted, and but at the same time, we didn't want to try to like go overboard with redoing some of these areas, so we try to keep things as intact as possible without having to redo a whole lot of things. But Lair of the Blind Ones was definitely that hub definitely went through some pretty significant changes.
Right. Yeah, I noticed, because I did play the original PC port a lot. I've been speedrunning this game for about 6 years now. But I played the original PC port, of course, before the remaster, and I could definitely tell that many places in basically every level except like maybe Death Marshes and Primogen's Lightship, I would say. There are many places that were changed a little bit to make the whole game a little easier to go through.
Shotgun saved.
Yeah, it wasn't like areas completely redone. It was just a few things that were just turned around, like maybe a few extra hallways were removed, and you know, some things were just rearranged to be a little bit. Well, I hate using the word linear. I didn't want to make it too linear, but at the same time, I didn't want to make it too confusing either. So some of the layout was just rearranged, just so it would basically guide you towards each mission objective a little bit more easier without having to, you know, without having to get lost.
Yeah. One feature that was also added to the remaster is the ledge grabbing, which I'm going to use right there. So I'm going to use the ledge grabbing to skip a little bit of this section, grab here, and then jump on this bridge that should be lower but isn't, but it's still solid anyway. So the ledge grabbing is a nice little add-on that really makes like the speed tech in this game more interesting. There's one here as well that's kind of new stuff that wasn't there in the old game.
Yeah, the collision system in Turok 2, it's really picky. It's really difficult to actually. I mean, basically, in the original game, it would look like there would be some areas where you think you can actually jump on, but you can't. And when I used to play the original, that would always frustrate me. So I would actually, I basically came up with the idea of, after playing Doom 4, I saw that, you know, they added this feature where you can mount and climb up on obstacles, and that kind of gave me a basic idea of doing something similar in Turok 2. So it actually started off as an experiment, and eventually it actually started to play out pretty well. So I eventually left that feature in and started to kind of refine it a little bit. So
I don't know how, but somehow I'm already almost at the end of the first mission here. Time has been going really fast. This section here was my favorite as a kid, like with the little bridges in the sky. But unfortunately, we blast through it incredibly fast in the speedrun. But as a kid, that was a blast to go through. I wanted to say, in the previous area, I was activating switches through walls, and basically switches have a small radius you can activate them in, and by like being on the other side of a wall that's thin enough, you can actually activate switches from the other side. I'll also later do shooting switches through a wall because of that same radius thing. So I just missed a ledge grab, unfortunately, but that's only like a 2-second time saver. There are many tricks in this game that only saves a couple of seconds, so overall the game is a fairly stable game in terms of like how long a run would last, because the most mistakes would only cost like 2 or 3 seconds. So in that regard, that's a great speed game, because you always know like how long the run is going to be. I think the estimate I gave for this marathon is only 5 minutes away from my PB, and I should easily make it.
Yeah, originally I was going to look into trying to fix that issue where you could activate switches behind walls, but I decided to just leave it in. And but to explain why that would happen, it's just simply because the collision does things in 2 different passes, one for objects and one for the level geometry, and it does tests with objects first and then geometry. So basically you would interact with objects first before the engine handles collision with walls and floors.
So here I'm doing a totem defense. Basically, after all the objectives, you have to defend the totem from being destroyed by these guys. Normally you have to do this in every level, but we're only going to see one of them because, like I'm going to explain later, and I already talked a bit about it, we're not going to beat the other levels. Basically, one thing that was added in the remaster was the ability to warp between save portals. And so we're going to be using that to warp between levels without having to actually beat them. And so that will make the whole any % run much faster.
The Death Marshes.
Yeah, that was another thing I did not like about the original Turok 2 was that if I picked up a talisman or you know, something like that, and that basically would mean I would have to revisit another hub and play through these areas again until I find that section that required a talisman to progress, and that always frustrated me. So that's was when I implemented this feature to where you can do quick warps at checkpoint stations.
Yeah, you can. The original game had a lot of backtracking. In the original part, actually, there were skips that were found to basically eliminate all the backtracking. But like in casual play, you were basically required to revisit each level at least once, which was, of course, a little tedious.
Destroy 3 ammunition storage.
So right now Adon is explaining all the mission objectives, and we're going to completely ignore all of that. We're going to do absolutely 0% of the mission. So the goal in this level will actually be to collect the keys to open level 5, and also to collect a talisman that will... oh, I meant to showcase a trick and I forgot. Well, it's too late now. I meant to showcase a trick that's normally not done in any % because it saves 4 seconds, and it's extremely hard to do. But I sort of went in muscle memory mode. So you can collect this key by going backwards the other way, but you have to jump on poisonous water, and like it's basically nearly frame perfect jumps with some added element of weird randomness. And to clear this body of water. Unfortunately, I didn't think of doing it. So yeah, we're gonna do 0% of the mission because all we need is to collect the talisman in this level and collect the keys to open the next level. And we're gonna come back at the end of the run to collect the Primogen key, which is the key that opens, well, one of the keys that opens the final boss. So yeah, so you need like the talisman from another level to come back here to get the key, so that's why the quick warp will be really useful. Otherwise it would take like maybe 20 extra minutes to do all the backtracking at the end. Oh, if you look closely on the left side here, you'll see this T stance. This guy just doesn't have an animation at the start, so you can see like his T stance before like he's fully loaded or something.
I'm actually surprised. I have never seen it before.
Yeah, I've noticed that a few months ago, and it's just a funny little detail. So normally there's a giant enemy that is going to spawn at the end of this, but if you go around in the green goo there, you can skip that spawn. And also you can skip climbing that tower by jumping here and then jumping here. Ledge grabbing. If you miss that ledge grab, that's one of the worst time losses in the early game, so thankfully I managed to get it first try. I used to save my game there to make sure I wouldn't lose too much time, but I'm no baby anymore. I do it first try every time.
Plasma rifle. Sniper capability enabled.
Alright, so this level is the shortest in the run. It's actually like probably more than halfway done already. At the end of this long bridge, it's going to be 2 giant enemies that we have to kill. But thanks to explosive shells, we're going to kill them in 1 hit. Explosive shells are like extremely broken, especially in the remaster. They were really good in the old game, but in the remaster, they're like kind of ridiculously broken. One detail about the explosive shells, basically the shredder is a weapon that if you fire, it fires a beam and then the beam splits into different, like, smaller beams. But with the explosive ammo, what it does is, come on. What it does with the explosive ammo is, it just like bounces the same beam for maybe like 20 bounces or something. And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but on each bounce, the explosion triggers again. And so, like, if you shoot the explosive shell in a small room, then it's just gonna fill the entire room with explosion. And so it kills pretty much every living thing in that room, except you, of course.
I grant you the breath of life, talisman. This talisman will
So for that reason, explosive shells are going to be pretty much the most valuable type of ammunition in the game. Throughout the run, I'll be counting my explosive shells. I really need to not use too many of them, especially in the later levels. Each and every one of them has a purpose, and wasting one can be very problematic sometimes. Also, here I just turned on the map. I'll be using that a little bit more later. It just kind of helps me seeing exactly where the walls are so I can take the best lines. Alright, that's a neat little skip. Here I used a trick where I saved the game and then loaded it again. That allows me to go through this door as soon as it starts opening and saves a few seconds. Basically, if you quick save and quick load in one area, as long as you stay within that area, all the doors that are currently opening but aren't fully opened yet, you can just go through them instead of having to wait for like the collision to leave to be like far enough removed that you can go through. It doesn't really save time in most of the run, but there are some areas where it does. Alright, so we're done with this level for now. We're gonna come back at the very end of the run. So we collected all the keys we needed to open level 5. Now we're gonna do, so I didn't say it at first, but this level was actually level 3 Death Marshes, and we're gonna go to level 2 now. And the reason why was because you need a talisman in level 3 to get the key in level 2, so we won't need to backtrack to get the key in level 2 because we already have the talisman now. And it's not like a special like sequence break or anything, it's just something the game allows you to do because it gives you the keys to level 2 and 3 at the very beginning in level 1. So it's just like a different level route you can take, even in casual play if you want.
Purify the water of the River of Souls. On the very shores of the deadly river, a mighty city sprang forth.
I really like this level. River of Souls is my favorite level. I really like the music, I really like the setting. I think it's really one of the most well-made level in the game.
Meraisi was once home to a formidable army, but decades of peace and prosperity saw little need for a large military presence.
I'm actually surprised that they never added like another section to where you can ride the riding gun and shoot things. It's only at the beginning of the River of Souls and that's it.
Yeah, and it's like definitely the moment where you feel the most badass in the game, and of course, because this is a speedrun, this is a no fun zone, so we're not gonna actually take the riding gun because going by foot is much faster. However, it requires a lot of explosive shells, and like I said, they're really valuable, so I'm gonna make sure to not miss any shots. But yeah, the first section is usually the riding gun section. You can see the giant dinosaur right there at the beginning, but I'm gonna ignore him and just go on my merry way by foot. So I'm gonna be shooting these turrets with my own hands.
Full health.
Hopefully I can get both turrets at once with a precise shot there. Nice. I didn't get the first one. Well, I just wasted a shot there, but I think I can spare one, but I can't spare more than one. So that was my only mistake allowed in this section. So as soon as a bridge starts like lowering or raising or whatever, you can walk on it as if it was done doing its animation. So you'll see me walking on thin air many times, especially in Port of Adia. The first level I did that like 8 times or something. sometimes there are also bridges that you can lower, but the game expects you to lower it before trying to cross it, so you don't even have to lower it, and it's just gonna let you through anyway. We're gonna see one of those examples later.
Yeah, the actual bridges themselves don't have collision, but instead, like all the levels are based on like collision meshes that are handmade by the level designer, and usually they would have like a flat piece of mesh that would just toggle on and off for collision. So really you're not actually colliding with the bridge.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense actually.
It's actually very similar to how GoldenEye does collision.
That explains why you can do this, for instance. And that also explains why you can do this one. So yeah, you're supposed to lower that bridge, but you can just jump on the water and go right through it. That raptor never saw it coming.
Full health.
Would you say it was not a clever girl?
I would say that, yes. It's nice that we can finally see the full scope of this area, because on the original version, the draw distance was so short that you could not even see half of it.
Yeah, surprisingly, the levels in Turok 2 are actually pretty large. But
Yes, they are.
But the draw distance, it just makes it feel so claustrophobic.
Yeah, it really feels like the game was so limited by the hardware at the time that the remaster is really like giving what the game should have, like giving the game the full potential it should have been using all this time. It's basically what Turok 2 should have been from the first release, I would say. It's like what the game should have been. It's really all I can say about the remaster. I'm really happy about the remaster. It really made what I thought was a good but flawed game into a great game. Okay, so here you can you'll see a really good example of why the explosive shells are really broken. So this you'd have to shoot it like 10 times, but by shooting like that, you just destroyed it in one hit. So like the explosive shell just bounced up and down on the ceiling and on the floor, and it did like one explosion on every hit. So it just did like 20 explosions in a row and blew up the objective in one single shell.
I'm almost positive you can actually do that on the N64 as well.
Well, the thing is, I'm not entirely sure the N64 version has explosions on every bounce, but I might be mistaken because it's been a long time since I played it. I know if we could do that before, then I wasn't aware of that speed strat. Alright, so we're gonna see the only Sister of Despair that we're actually gonna kill in this. We can't completely skip every objective in this level because some of them are actually required to progress further. So one Soul Gate that we just destroyed, and then one Sister of Despair. But the other ones we're actually gonna skip. So we're gonna go fight this Sister of Despair, and then that will let us progress to the next section. That was one of the things that was changed, because you used to be able to like completely go by this Sister of Despair. If you took one wrong path, you would one wrong turn, I mean, you would just like never know the Sister was there and completely miss the objective. So that was one of the changes that made the completing this level a little less confusing. So I'm using all my remaining explosive shells here to kill these guys. And I missed that shot. Okay. That didn't cost too much time. You can actually kill that sister in one shot with the explosive shell. In this section, it's a little more like just going through tunnels, but the next one after will be the second to last area of the level. So we're actually already reaching the end of River of Souls here. You would normally see the second Sister of Despair over on the left pretty soon, but we're gonna ignore that one because we don't need to actually complete the missions. We really are only going for the level keys here. And since we do have the talisman from level 3, now we can actually get the Primogen key without having to backtrack, so we're going to do that as well. So another level 4 key, and I think there's one more left. Okay, got the explosive shells refill, got 3 more, so I can kill this guy in one hit. He had no chance. Alright, so this is the final area of the level already. We're gonna have to collect the feather to get the talisman. That's something I didn't explain at first, but for some reason, this ancient spirit that gives you these powers really likes eagle feathers, so you need to bring him one. So before we do that, we just need to get the last level 4 key, which is behind this next door. So right behind this door. Now off we go. Alright. As you can see, everything is in 3D except the 2D non-moving sprite of the feather. I don't know what they were. I don't know what who they were trying to fool with that one, but I don't think it's working.
With this talisman, you may leap great distances simply by...
Yeah, I never really understood that myself.
It's a little similar to the trees in Super Mario 64 that are actually sprites, except this one is a little more obvious.
I am Turok!
So this way is the Primogen key of this level. So you'll see the first Primogen key of 6. So this is what the talisman we just collected does. It's the Leap of Faith. And I guess right now I'll touch already on all the talismans and what they do. In my opinion, the original developers of Turok 2 didn't really have too much inspiration for the powers to give Turok. So the first talisman is this one. So the Leap of Faith allows you to cross large gaps by standing on the talisman pad. And then the talisman from level 4 lets you cross lava by standing on the talisman pad. And the talisman from the 5th level will let you cross large gaps by standing on a talisman pad. And the talisman from level 6 will let you cross large gaps, not only by standing on the talisman pads, but also by walking on this magical path across the large gap. So as you can see, there's sort of like a common theme of crossing large gaps by standing on a talisman pad. It's basically what every single talisman in the game will allow you to do.
The Mantids are incapable of pity, remorse.
I feel like they could have at least thought a little more creative ways to give you powers than crossing gaps.
By promising to give them ripe new worlds to infest. The first world on their list is Earth.
So yeah, this level coming up is Hive of the Mantids, and it is, in my opinion, the hardest level, both casually and for the speedrun. There are a lot of precise tricks, well, not really precise tricks, but precise shots and with short timing windows, and the explosive shells are extremely precious in this level. So I might do a little bit of safety quick saves just in case I miss some shots, so I'm not wasting too many explosive shells, because that could lose a lot of time. So because the bottom of these walls is curved, if you crouch, you have a short window where you can shoot through the bottom of the wall. And by shooting out of bounds like that, you can just shoot in other rooms without having the wall stopping you. So there's going to be a few times in this level where we shoot through the walls to destroy force field generators from like completely different parts of the level, and so that can save a lot of time. But these shots are a little precise to get. So far, so good. These little monsters can very easily block you. The main source of time lost in this level is just getting blocked by every single thing. Okay, there's a little tricky shot coming up right there. I went a little early and didn't get it. There you go. So that's the only force field generator that we're actually walking up to it and destroying. Every other one will just shoot from out of bounds somewhere. This is one of the most annoying rooms in the level. These really large enemies often like run after you and will block you. Thankfully I just killed one, so it must... yeah. I'm gonna be fine this time, but in many runs, you'll have them running at you and blocking you all the time, which is really annoying. But they often get stuck on the walls, so... I was lucky this time, they didn't give me any trouble. There's a neat little spawn kill right there.
This particular hub has always annoyed me when I first played it for the first time. There's just a lot of small enemies that's just, you know, just blocking your path.
Okay, this is one of the trickier shots to make.
Game saved.
Oops.
There you go.
The force field generator is really far away, so it's hard to tell exactly where to shoot.
Shall I go ahead with some donations?
Yeah, if you want.
Sure. Got $15 from Teeny. It's been a very long time since I've been able to donate. Lost my grandma to breast cancer 23 years ago and lost a friend to cancer almost 7 years ago. Thank you to everyone for all the hard work you put forward to help fight cancer.
Nice. That elevator cycle is pretty hard to make, and I had a kind of a slow start to this area, so I was hoping I'd get it.
Firestorm field down.
So you can also shoot through the floor by crouching like that if you stand in the right spot. Also, there's a switch behind that. We can't see it, but there's...
Portal activated.
It activates the portal to get the talisman. And by death warping there, we can just reach that talisman faster. Actually, because of the way we're doing this section, we're actually locked out from returning after we jump down to the feather section. So death warping is pretty much the only way back, unless you like go out and do more stuff. We skip like activating one elevator, and so that's how we can get to the feather faster. But you need a death warp back.
With this talisman, you call upon ancient voices to lift you over areas that may not be crossed otherwise.
So you heard them. You can be lifted through areas that you cannot be crossed otherwise. Not to be confused with the leap of faith, which lets you leap across areas that cannot be crossed otherwise. Very, very different powers.
There's like only 1 or 2 places where you'll actually use that talisman.
Also, there's a 10 health right there at the bottom. Need a grenade launcher here.
Full health. Cerebral bore.
So I just picked up this cerebral bore. This weapon is probably the most legendary of all the Turok games, and here's the only time of the run where I'll be using it. There you go. So while it's an amazing weapon, the main problem for the speedrun is that it takes like 5 seconds to kill the enemy, but it assures one shot kill every time. It takes a long time. So because it takes such a long time to kill the enemies, it's just not practical. All right, we got this tricky shot, and we might make this cycle. No, this cycle is definitely the hardest to make. I've only made it a few times in practice and never in a run. I think the world record actually gets the cycle, but I'm not entirely sure. It's definitely the hardest cycle in the game to make. Alright, this area is extremely deadly, but thankfully we're on easy right now, so we're not actually gonna die, but we're still gonna take a lot of damage. I still took 60 something damage from this area. Normally on any other difficulty I would have been dead.
Yeah, and surprisingly enough, those specific turrets are like the only thing that actually deals like actual significant damage.
Right. Also, this is a tunnel of bad video quality. So no matter what bitrate you're using, whenever you enter that tunnel, the video quality will be terrible. We've tried with a bitrate of like 10,000, it doesn't help. It's still gonna look terrible.
Shall I drop a quick donation?
Sure, yes.
Got $15 from Anonymous. Just says, great job running this event, even in the sleepy hours.
Okay, so here is a special chamber where there's a queen embryo, but again, we're not doing the actual mission, so we're skipping that chamber. But if you go in the middle, you can kill one of the queen embryos, and that's part of the objectives. And with that, we're pretty much done with Hive of the Demented, so we have 2 levels left, and then the backtracking.
Greetings, Turok. How may I assist you?
So I'm gonna refill on ammo, and
granted.
off we go. So the Whispers talisman is actually the Whispers is the one we picked up in Hive of the Demented, the last one. The Whispers talisman is actually by far the worst. So in the hardcore category of this game, enemies deal 8 times more damage and also have 4 times more health than on this category. And so basically, like, whenever I'm below 90 health, that means I would probably have been dead otherwise in hardcore. In the start of Lair of the Blind Ones, you use the Whispers talisman, and there are enemies that are like out of reach for you to kill them before you use the
Your mission
talisman.
objectives
But
are
then
as
once you
follows.
use the talisman, you'll see you spend like 10 seconds of being
Feel free
unable to
thermal
do
vents,
anything while they
tracking
shoot
blind
at you.
ones beneath
And in
tons of rock.
hardcore, they'll just kill you without being able to do anything about it.
Locate the energy totem.
Which is
and
why,
defend it
in
at
my
all
opinion,
costs.
Whispers is a terrible power to have. Thankfully, though, I don't remember who exactly, but somebody figured out a strat to unload one of the enemies here, and so you can actually live through this section in hardcore, but you have to like hug a specific wall to never trigger the enemy later. So like, if I was on hardcore, in this section here, I would have lost probably around like 160 health. This guy is dealing 40 damage per hit on hardcore. Alright, so in this level I'll make more use of the map to see where I'm going, because I can see exactly where the walls are. That's pretty useful.
Primogen key found.
Alright, so since we have the talisman from level 5, we did that level before level 4 so we could have it. We won't need to backtrack in this level because we already have the talisman, the Primogen key, I mean. So this level was, I think, where most players gave up on N64 because it's absolutely insane
Game saved.
in terms of like how confusing it is. I hope I got both switches here. Yes, I did. So by sort of clipping into the ceiling, you can shoot the switches in this room from the tunnel, and so you don't have to wait for them to open the door, and by the time you actually reach the door, it's already open. It saves a few seconds. Also, by doing the quick save and quick load trick, I was able to go through that door faster, and so that saves like another second. My health is getting pretty low here, but I'm not too worried because there's a full health coming up. Normally this door would
Full health.
close in front of you, but if you run fast enough, you can just go past it. In the latest version of the game, that's actually been fixed, but I'm playing on the version that's the first patch. Oh no, that's not supposed to
Four lives
happen.
remaining.
It's not too bad. I can get back there in 30 or 40 seconds. It's probably one of the worst places to die, but there are no places in this game where dying costs you more than 1 minute. So that's at least pretty fortunate. I just kind of took that corner a little too short, too close, I mean.
Got some donations while you get there if you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
$5 from Akuji1993, appreciating the runners and the audience that fills the night hours and brings me entertainment at work. Have fun running. And we also got $40 from Ray109, who says nothing whatsoever, but thank you anyway for the donation.
Alright, so we're back where we died earlier. So yeah, like I was saying, the cool thing about this game is that there are very few large time losses, so it makes running this game a bit less stressful, I would say. Alright, so coming up is the only really difficult large skip, I would say. So I'm gonna have to save state for it, because if I miss, I would lose a lot of time. But I got it first try. Alright, in this area you can shoot in the ceiling there to activate a switch down the tunnel.
Torpedo launcher.
You can normally activate an option to show the objective markers, but I don't really like having that option, so I kind of don't use it. But the only downside is I can't see if I actually hit that switch. So hopefully I did, but if I didn't, it's not too bad. I can just go hit it the normal way. Okay, I did hit it. It's pretty rare that I would miss it, but sometimes you're unlucky enough that the explosive shell you throw down the tunnel somehow never touches the switch. Alright, so there's a thermal vent here. The only objective in this mission is to seal 3 of them, but we're actually only there for the cave door key that's right next to it, so we're not actually doing it. This part of the level is an extremely confusing maze where you often end up drowning because you don't know where to go. But of course, when you know where to go, it's not too bad.
This area actually went through several updates. Like a lot of tunnels were actually taken out to make things a little bit more simple.
Yeah, I think the original tunnel was completely insane. I remember when I was younger, it was mostly my brother playing this game because he's much older than I am, and I remember him spending a lot of time on this tunnel section.
I actually remember spending at least like several hours just trying to find my way around this area.
Yeah, it's most people describe this level as being a confusing hellhole of a level. it's like I said earlier, it's where most casual players, especially on N64, gave up playing the game. So the talisman in level 4 allows you to walk on lava, but as you will see right there, it's not really necessary because you can just jump over lava, no problem. So yeah, talisman in level 4 is so useless we don't even need to get it at all.
Turok!
Is one of them not dead yet? I think it's probably the first time that I see the explosive shell in this room not taking out 2 of them. So I was not expecting having to shoot 2 of them. It's usually a one-shot kill on everything, but sometimes you get unlucky. I guess this was especially unlucky. Also, I almost missed that ledge grab.
Shredder.
So we're already coming up towards the end of this level. In this level, that's probably the only one where the explosive shells aren't really like too required. I only need like a handful of them, so I'm gonna kind of overuse them a little bit at the end. I have 10 right now, so I'm just gonna waste them all on random enemies to have fun. This one is actually required, and then you have to kill the next 3 entrails in that room, but using explosive ammo is definitely way overkill. And also you can just blow everything up here, and why not this one as well. In that area was a mission objective, so we can just go right past it. And now the final part. If I fall down there, it's just a minor time loss, even if it looks like it would be the death of the run. But it's just simple platforming. Alright.
Shredder.
The last level 6 key, and the to kill these guys. And this one. Now, yeah, something I kind of forgot to explain. When you fail the level, it brings you back to the beginning, and it's often the fastest way to reach the closest save portal. So that's why I've been doing that in most levels.
Greetings, Turok.
So now
How
we're
may I
going to the last level of the game, Primogen's Lightship.
Ammo Grunt.
Primogen being the main enemy in the game and the final boss, so that is his lightship. This is, I think, the longest level. It's split into 4 sections, and the main objective in this level will be to get the Primogen Key 6, which is normally the last one you would need, but we'll get it before backtracking, so it's actually not the last one we're getting. I don't know if I'm speaking loud enough to be covering what Aiden is saying right now, but basically the level is split in 4 sections, and each section has one switch you need to press, and if you press all 4 switches, then that lowers the force field on Primogen Key 6. The thing with each of the switches is that they are locked behind areas that you need the talismans to cross. And so you'll need the talismans from the previous level, but also the talisman from this level to get all 4 switches. And so in each section, my goal will be to reach that switch, activate it, and then progress to the next one. The thing is, the switch that needs the talisman from this level, of course, is before the point where you get the talisman, so we will have to do some backtracking within the level. But I'll point out each of these 4 switches as I get to them. They're all fairly obvious because they all have these talismans pad right next to them.
The river of souls will grow pure for the first time. Tens of thousands would benefit from its clean, cool water.
And yet Adon never mentions any of this.
Right. She only talks about some random whatever. I don't listen to her. She's misleading me, trying to get me to do fetch quests or something. So the warp pads in this level are a little different. There's sort of these elevators you have to activate before you take them. In this level I use a map a lot to know exactly where the walls are, but also to not get lost. And I actually went the wrong way, of course. So, like I said at the very beginning of this run, I am currently very tired, and so it is quite likely that in this level I go the wrong way a few times. This level is a little confusing, I would say. So, when someone has had 4 hours of sleep, like 24 hours ago, going the right way everywhere is not going to happen. Alright, so the first of these 4 switches is right there. There's going to be the Whisper's Talisman and then the switches on the other side. So right there, we have to wait 10 seconds while the spirits carry us across this gap. And this, behind the wall right there, was the switch I needed to activate. Now I can go this way. So that was the first section. So that's basically how the level goes. Complete each section, get to the end, and then Primogen Key. So there's an Ultra Health here, but I'm going to try to avoid it.
Ultra health.
That did not go as expected. The reason I wanted to avoid it is later I'm going to do a Death Warp, and so I want to have my health as low as possible in preparation for that Death Warp. Obviously, getting Ultra Health is not necessarily what you would want to do to have your health be as low as possible. Where am I going? In this area, if you fall in the middle, you're like permanently stuck until you die. So you gotta make sure not to do that. So I guess for the rest of this level, I'm gonna kind of try to take as much damage as I can, and that's gonna speed up speed up the later section. This area is pretty cool because you go like so much faster in it because you're like pushed by wind or something. But it's also definitely the hardest to optimize the movement. I've never done this section perfectly cleanly before.
Shall I hop in with a donation?
Yeah, of course.
We got $5 from just another Twitter user. This is for J. Dos Santos 2110 on Twitter, who made a tweet about their grandpa being diagnosed recently with cancer, and had a lovely message about being grateful for all that GDQ does. They mentioned they couldn't donate this year, so, although it isn't much, this is for you and your grandpa. I wish him and your family all the best.
Alright, so that is the end of the second section. But as you could see, I did not activate the special switch behind the talisman pad. That is where I'm going to have to come back later. And off we go to the third section. Alright. So, you probably have noticed that in this level, Turok is constantly yelling. Because you're always, like, taking small amounts of damage, but it's never, like, large amounts. If I was playing on hardcore, those would be large amounts of damage, and so the level is a lot more difficult in that difficulty. I'd like to give shoutouts to the Turok 2 speedrunning community, especially to Growth Cassidy, who holds the world record in this game. He has a 107 and I have a 109.29, so he's about a minute and a half ahead, a little more than a minute and a half ahead.
Any guess on how you're doing so far?
Well, of course, that one death in Lair of the Blind Ones cost probably close to a minute, so I wouldn't say too well, but I would guess I am probably on 112 pace, but it might be 113 pace. I don't know exactly what time I'm at right now, but I would guess I am on pace for about maybe mid 112 to mid 113.
Way better than I can do either way.
Okay, in this room you can actually do it faster by jumping on these walls. And I missed on the target again. There you go. Whoa, I got a weird... Okay. I got a weird bug where I tried moving forwards and it kind of didn't work. And I just got trapped in this room instead. Okay. Alright, so that was a little slower than it should have been, but it's fine. Oh, did this door really close now? This section can be really annoying because as soon as something goes wrong, everything will go much worse. There. Oh, I missed the ledge grab. Come on. This room is the worst to play optimally. I was not expecting it to go very well, but I was not expecting it to go this poorly, though. Alright, we're out of this. Let's just get me out. So, like, usually most switches in this game just open doors permanently, but for some reason, in that specific room, they only open for a short amount of time. And so if you miss some stuff, you're gonna have to redo. You're gonna have to redo some parts and have to reactivate some switches. Okay, so we are in the final area of this level. This is where we'll get the talisman to get the final switch as well. This next area is... it doesn't really matter how fast I go here because I'm going to be waiting for the elevator. but it's not a super easy cycle to make, so I can't just screw around for too long. I have maybe 1 second I can lose, so I still have to make sure I'm not doing anything wrong. Alright, if I see the elevator moving, there you go. That means you can make it. If you get there and the elevator is stopped moving already, then you won't make it. That's been my observations, at least.
The portal activated.
Alright, so here's actually one of the mission objectives.
Assembly plant destroyed.
So we actually have to complete that one because it opens this door in which we need to collect 2 items. These 2 things will let us reach the switch in this area. But aside from that, we, again, don't really need to complete any of the mission objectives. There's another category in this game. Aside from the difficulty setting, there's also 100%. Whoa, I went too far. Okay. In the 100% category, you do need to complete every mission objective, and you also need to collect every weapon. 2 weapons can be very easily skipped. The tranquilizer gun and the bigger one is the nuclear weapon, the nuke. For that one, you need to go in the fake portals, the Oblivion portals, and fight a bunch of Oblivion monsters. And then at the end, you get rewarded with a part of the nuke weapon. And when you have all 6 of them, you have the nuke, which is, well, I guess just the name probably gives you a good idea of how powerful that weapon is. The only thing is, it's not really effective against bosses, which would probably be the best use for the weapon. So in practicality, it's not really that much of a good weapon. It's sort of that thing that's like incredibly awesome, but you realize it's actually not really awesome. Alright, so here I can actually try to take a little bit of damage, but just not too much.
DFM low.
Okay, that was less than I should have taken, but at least I didn't kill myself, which was something I was trying to avoid. So in preparation for the death warp, I'm trying to get my health as low as possible, but I also have to be careful not to get it so low that I die before the death warp. So I'm gonna be on the cautious side here with 95. I could probably be at around 40 and still be fine here. Alright, so that was the last, not the last, but that was the switch of that area that we needed to get to access the Primogen Key 6. And now there's only one more to get, which is all the way back in the second area, which I'm going to go to right now. No, I didn't want to get that. Well, we're full of health now, and so yeah. It really doesn't matter that much because all it does, it costs like about half a second per 13 health. So wait, I am in the wrong place. This one. Yeah, it costs about half a second per 13 health I have. So having like an extra 100 health is only really costing me like 3 seconds, but I'm making it a bigger deal than it actually is. Let's just say all the health management in the world would save much less time than not falling in the lair of the blind ones like I did. So it really doesn't really matter in the long run. Alright, so this is the Eye of Truth talisman. Lets me cross large gaps again. Alright, so the old strat here was to Death Warp, but we're gonna go back through the entrance instead. I timed it to be about 3 to 4 seconds faster.
Got a donation if you'd like.
Yeah, of course.
We've got $5 from Evan Kirstins. I'm loving this Turok 2 run. So glad Turok 1 and 2 got a remaster. Figured it'd be good to have that one on while the dev's on.
Okay, we're going this way, and now the force field is now down, so I can collect this Primogen key.
Primogen key found.
And now we're going back through the first area. The only reason why we're going in the first area is simply because that's where the closest save portal is. So I'm just gonna go there and access the closest one. One other cool thing about this place is that there are red lasers right there you can take damage on. And so I'll be using that. There you go. My health at 14, that's perfect for the death warp. Alright, so now I just gotta be a little careful not to die before it's time, but that should not happen.
How may I assist you?
Alright, so warping to Death Marshes 3, and I'm gonna go collect the Primogen key here. So the reason I've been talking about this Death Warp is that basically the Primogen key is all the way at the end of a tunnel, and it's really long to get back from it, and so the fastest way is just to Death Warp, and that will put you directly at the save portal, so that saves, I would say, probably at least 40 seconds. Well, maybe not 40, at least 30 seconds, I would say. Alright. So here, I want to die as soon as I get the Primogen key.
Primogen key found.
Okay. And now, back in the save portal. So that was level 3 backtracking. Now we're going to do level 5
How
backtracking.
may I assist
And then we'll have level 1 backtracking. 5 is all the way down. Breeding grounds. Let's go.
If I may,
Yes.
got $500 from
Nice.
Brian B. This time last year, I lost my uncle to cancer, and it hit my family pretty hard. In the spirit of a previous donation, I also want to donate on behalf of some of those who can't, and to try to prevent any other families from going through the same. Much love to all these late-night runners, and good luck to those yet to run.
Primogen key found. 5 lives remaining.
Alright, that's Primogen Key 5. And now we got only 1 left. We're going to be able to fight Primogen. Which, of course, that's not something the remaster developers are at fault for, but in my opinion, the Primogen is one of the worst final bosses you can possibly find. And you'll see why later. I think every speedrunner of this game complains about the final boss all the time. One of the main reasons why Growth Cassie's run is 1.5 minutes faster than mine is because his final boss patterns were so absurdly good that he saved like 30 seconds for free, I think it was. And so that's like a major part of the giant time save. But I mean, of course, the rest of the run was also much better than mine. I'm not trying to downplay his run, but I'd say about 1/3 of the time save just came from RNG on the final boss. So it's part of the reason why we're not really a fan of that fight. You can play a really good run and then get awful patterns, and you would lose so much more than everything you've gained by playing well. Alright, so we're done with all the Primogen keys. It's gonna be the time for final boss.
Greetings, Turok.
So at this point, I got about 4.5 minutes left of the run.
Ammo granted.
We tried to figure out like what exactly triggers these patterns with the final boss, but Bottom of the line is we have no idea what the hell is going on with that. Sometimes
It's actually all random. It would just pick a pattern, and then it would just yeah, it would just basically pick a like a mode based on this large list of different types of patterns, and it'll just randomly pick which ones.
yeah, so that's basically a speedrunner's worst nightmare, especially on a final boss. Alright. So in this boss, basically we'll be waiting for him to be done dancing in this little cockpit here. And then when he comes out, we're gonna blast him off with these things, little explosive shells. Now we have to wait for these bombs to fall. And now these little tiny planes are gonna come out and we have to kill them all. And now hopefully he comes out now. Okay, he did. So the first phase we have to blast off the antennas. As you can see by the flashing antennas. Now he's gonna try to regen, but we're not letting him do that. So I just took a large amount of health down, but it doesn't actually matter. I still have to kill all 4 antennas. So like, even though his health is really low right now, it's just gonna go like down another little bit, like that. And then there's another phase of regen that I have to cancel. And now another antenna to destroy. And now one last round of regen interruption. I was lucky enough that he landed right next to his little control panel, so it's gonna take much less time to actually reach it. That's another bit of RNG that can save you some time if you're lucky enough. So if I'm really lucky, he's gonna come out soon, but chances are he won't. Yeah, he's not. He's staying there. More bombs. And oh, he is coming out now. When he's doing his little dance like that, that means he's coming out. I can't aim. There you go. Aiming at that long arm can be pretty tricky sometimes because it's always moving in a pattern that's really difficult to predict. So I'm glad I got it in a few shots here. Alright, so there's going to be one final phase there. So the time is going to come out, is going to be not long after he lands after his little dancing session here. But yeah, as soon as he lands, time will be pretty soon afterwards, because you'll see the third phase will be the shortest by far.
Game saved.
Figured I would save my game just in case something horrible happens. You never know with this game. Alright, he's coming out. Time is coming up. We've got a nice little trap here, and time.
Nice.
So yeah, while I still have the mic, I'd like to give huge shout-outs to the dev team at Night Dive for the remaster, and also the Turok 2 speedrunning community, including like I talked about, Growth Cassie, who holds the record in this category, but also Behemoth, who runs hardcore and has the record in it. He's the same Behemoth who does Super Metroid runs as well. You may know him already. I'd also give shoutouts to Bakwa Soup. He also submitted this game, but yeah, his PB is really close to mine, so it was sort of a close race for the GDQ submission. But he's also a really good runner, and a really good runner of Resident Evil games. And there are other runners in the community, like wow, I'm forgetting his name. But there's someone who like discovers all these really neat tricks, like all these shots in the Hive of the Mentids, but I'm too tired. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. I'm really tired. But yeah, also a great runner and really great contributor to the speed game with all the tricks he found. Probably the runner with the most tricks found for the general any percent run. So yeah, those were my shoutouts. Also shoutouts to the people behind me on the couch for watching the run, and shoutouts to the dev commentary as well. Thanks for staying at this really late hour of the night, and thanks for the crowd.